5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to welcome you to the meeting of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission at 6:03 on January 17th, 2023. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Cormany?
Present.
Commissioner Jerome?
Yes.
Commissioner Randolph? Vice Chair Johnson?
Here.
And Chair Moore.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll advise everyone that this meeting is on Zoom tonight, and we will not be accepting any new items after 10 p.m. If needed, we can schedule a special meeting. At this time, I would like to see if there are any comments from the public, anything not on the agenda. Hi, please state your name and address.
Patricia Cullinan, 425 Denmark Street. I want to compliment the commission on becoming a stronger historic preservation group. And I'd also like to publicly say that the California Preservation Foundation has many classes online that are free for your new, stronger role with preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, are there any comments?
There is no one raising their hand on Zoom at this time.
Thank you. Now we'll review and accept the agenda. Can we have a motion to approve?
I motion accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Staff, is there any late correspondence?
There's no late correspondence.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the consent calendar. We have consent calendar item 3.1, request to install banners on Plaza Light Standards, Sonoma International Film Festival, subject to a categorical exemption pursuant to section 15311 of the state CEQA guidelines on premise.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent calendar as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. We can go to the public hearing at this time. We'll start with 4.1. And that is consideration, discussion, and possible action to adopt a resolution updating the city's local inventory of historic sites and structures, the local inventory, including the action is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to section 15061B3, general rule of the CEQA guidelines. May we have the staff report, please?
Absolutely. Nice to see everyone this evening. This issue has been discussed a few times before the Design Review Commission, but for the benefit of those in the audience and who might be listening, I'll do a little bit of background. The City of Sonoma established our local historic inventory in 2006 by resolution, and it contained 94 listings of historic sites and structures in the city limits. The resolution includes a provision that the local inventory is automatically updated as properties are added to the state register. Currently, the listing includes 143 properties, so there have been an increase in 49 properties since 2006. And we've been working with Page and Turnbull for over a year now to take a deeper dive to look at what properties should be added that are unique to Sonoma. And originally, I think we came here in August and had a list of 9 maybe, and identified that there was a little bit more work to be done and some other properties that we might be able to add. So we're currently before the commission this evening with a list of 14, and the resolution is included in the action this evening. So hopefully this will be the step to making all of that final. And the direction from the commission the last time was to do a little bit more outreach to the community and the affected property owners. So in December, we sent a letter to all of the property owners, giving them some more information about the process. We developed a frequently asked questions list that was included in that as well, and included the resolution. So that went out to everyone and advertised the meeting for tonight. So that was about a month ago at this point. So here are the properties that we are proposing to be listed. There are 14. And just some cute little pictures from the HREs. Now, contrary to the previous process that we've gone through with the historic district, so the district needed to go to City Council for adoption, but the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission actually has the authority to add the historic sites. So you have the wonderful job of making that decision this evening. And the code section that governs this process is 1942-020. And the process can be initiated by anyone. So the hearing was noticed appropriately, and we're here this evening. And the findings of approval are in front of you on the screen this evening. And in order to recommend approval, the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission must find that each of the resources meets one of the following criteria. It does not have to meet all of them. And I do have, we have Stacy Kosakevich on the line as well for questions. And it will be a pretty short presentation. I think we've gone over this fairly rigorously. And the recommendation from staff is that the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission adopt a resolution updating the city's local inventory. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Could you just kind of give us a follow-up on the outreach and any feedback that those that came to the last meeting and maybe those that you had to reach out to?
Yeah, the only outreach that was done, we had one property that wanted some more information, and we had a call last week, and I believe there's representatives from the property owners to speak this evening, but we had a really wonderful conversation, and I think hopefully I'm in line, but I think they're excited about the process as well.
Thank you, Christina. Another question, please.
So I have could you expand on the obligations to the homeowner? Because are they able to object? Do they have to? Is this mandatory? Some of the background on that, I know we covered it briefly before.
Yeah, so it's up to the discretion of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission this evening to decide which properties to include or not to include. Just to elaborate a little bit on what the obligation is. So all of these properties have been determined to be historic already. So there's very little change for the property owner. So if they just really didn't want to be on the list and the commission decided not to include them, it would really be the same level of requirements if they wanted to come through the planning process. So if they have a historic building now and they come in for design review for an addition or something like that, we would go through the same process now as if it was on the list. The list is really a disclosure tool. It's a way for us to celebrate our heritage, and there are some benefits in the code to being on the historic list. In our infill and historic, our adaptive reuse clause in chapter 1942 gives a lot more flexibility to historic properties. So if it's a residential property, but it's historic, it could be used as a vacation rental for a wine tasting. It could be a hotel, a B&B. It's a way that the city tries to encourage the designation and give property owners as much flexibility as possible.
Are there any other questions? All right. We don't have an applicant, but we did have a presentation.
We did, and Stacy, do you have anything to add?
Hi, I'm not turning on my video. It's not allowed during the
Stacy, do you have
presentation,
anything
but
to
this
add?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. Well, I would just like to take a moment to thank some of the members of our audience for their participation. Alice Duffy and Robert Demler and Patricia Cullinan have been really integral to this process. This is an issue that's really outside of my primary area of expertise, and relied on them heavily to get to this point. So thank you all very much.
Christina, can you hear me now? Hello?
Stacy, try again. Say something.
Maybe try switching your speaker. That happens to me sometimes. Or you can call my cell and I can put you on speakerphone.
Can anybody hear me now?
There we go.
Great. We had a technical difficulty, as always seems to happen. I don't have anything to add. I'm mostly here just for to answer questions if anybody needs it. I think that Christina made the excellent point that each of these properties has already been found historically significant by review by independent historic preservation professionals or the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation. And so, like she said, there really wouldn't be any kind of substantive change in design review processes or project review for any of these properties. But what it does do is, like she said, give them the kind of the benefit of recognition and any historic preservation incentives that do go along with being listed on the inventory.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to public comments. So if you have a public comment, please raise your hand and we'll have you come up and state your name and your address, please.
Robert Demler, 649 First Street West. Good evening, Commission. I have, with apologies to Stacy, I have an awkward, but I hope you will understand, an innocent question. Since these 14 properties for tonight were essentially sourced, 12 of them by the Sonoma League and our former president, Alice Duffy Healy, and the other 2 by a professional preservationist who has been a friend of Sonoma for many years, what will be the role of Page and Turnbull going forward, since you have these assets in town, shop local? That's my question.
Thank you.
Like, couldn't we do it ourselves?
Does Stacy have a response to that?
Yes, I believe
Great.
so.
Question, please.
Can you say that one more time, Stacy?
I wasn't able to understand what Mr. Demler said.
If
Could someone please
I can
restate the
rephrase.
question?
Sure, he's wondering if what the role of Page and Turnbull will be going forward after these designations, especially in light of the fact that we have many experts locally in town.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my role probably to comment on that. So the City of Sonoma relies on many different resources for lots of different projects. So Page and Turnbull has been our consultant on this, as they were also our consultant on the downtown design guidelines and for many other initiatives at the city level. We've been working with Stacy very closely on our code amendments, and they helped us with our multifamily design guidelines, our SB 9 proposals. So they're somebody that we go to very frequently for code work. So we love our relationships with all of our local ones as well. Sometimes there can be conflicts of interest because if somebody works on an individual project, it's good to have an independent third party to evaluate the ability of, the quality and content of all of the reports and have that independent third party for the city, and as staff, it's very valuable. So we are grateful and value all of our resources.
Thank you, Christina. Is there any other? Oh, hello. Please restate your name.
Patricia Cullinan, 425 Denmark. I also want to thank everyone for all the work on this, but I do have a question. Perhaps Stacy is the one. Listing a historic resource allows people to use the historic building code on their projects, and I think that's a very valuable asset to inform the public that has historic properties about, because it's a definite incentive. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Please state your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Aaron Smith. My address is 1220 North Dutton in Santa Rosa. I'm here representing the owners of 700 Curtin Lane. And The owners have asked that 700 Curtin Lane be removed from the list for tonight. Christina, we appreciate all the time that you've spent. I think at this point, they just want to be able to digest a little bit further what all of this truly means. The property's been in the family for decades, and they're just trying to look at estate planning and how best to have that property served. At this point, they feel okay, but they still would just like a little bit of time to digest what this list means. We've heard all of the valuable stuff and information about why to be part of the historic preservation. So I don't want to speak exactly for them, but they've asked me to. So if you could just remove them from that vote for tonight, I think they would be appreciative, and they would also be very willing to work with staff and come back at a later date if it's in their wishes and the family's wishes. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I just during a public comment, but I'm happy to answer them. And I do want to say Christina's been great to take the time and explain everything. It's just, it's moving very fast for the family, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just add on, just to make sure they understand. So, like, as I mentioned beginning, this hasn't been updated since 2006. So it's definitely not something that happens every year or every 2 years. So they just might want to take that into consideration.
That's great. Thank you. Now, but as part of this process of being added to the list, if I understand it, can be initiated by anyone, correct? So
Correct.
the homeowners could come at a hearing sometime in the next year and request that their property be added at that time, right?
Yeah, there would be an application and fees and associated time and all that. So-
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, may I have your name and address?
Allison O'Donnell, 457 4th Street East. Thank you for having us. I'm just going to say ditto to our property on Highway 12, 19360. Family property, deeply rooted in family and lots of other things that go along with it. It's a house that sits on a lot with another house, and it's complicated and personal and emotional, and we'd like a little more time with that as well. And I'm just curious about this process because the house was designated in 1998, and I'm wondering if anyone, like, how do you reassess that? Have you seen that, like, there's a dispensary across the street now, and like the landscape of Highway 12 has changed dramatically over the last 25 years, and I'm just curious how this house specifically can even be considered something to be put on this registry the way it exists at the moment. It looks totally different than it did when it was evaluated in 1998. The city bought part of the property and sort of shaved off part of this lot and also changed the front of the lot. So it's just not what it was. I'm wondering about your process.
Thank you.
Yeah, that definitely would not be a question for me. I will let Stacy answer that one if she's available.
Hi. Looking at the, is this, just to clarify, this is 19360 Sonoma Highway?
Correct.
Right. The, as the property owner knows, the property was found eligible for its architectural style. And so, you know, as a good example of a bungalow style of its era, actually quite late in the kind of era of construction of bungalows. And so because the house itself retains the characteristics that it had at the time that it was evaluated, the setting is, and the setting being, you know, the dispensary across the street, the subdivision of the lot, those factors are less significant to a property's eligibility when that property is eligible for its individual architectural style, rather than if it was, for example, eligible as part of a larger agricultural property that had been subdivided. If that was part of its association, then indeed we would want to reevaluate it. And if the property owner, wanted, because it had been previously found eligible, if the property owner did, propose a project, depending on what the permitting path for that would be, it would be likely reevaluated. And if the property had not been found to differ, substantially in its actual appearance, its materials, its style, its design characteristics from when it was evaluated previously, then the finding would likely be the same within the context of Sonoma's history. So while we understand those setting changes do alter some properties' eligibility, in this case, it doesn't look like that would be the case.
Thank you, Stacy.
So that would mean extra expense, because an HRE would certainly have to be done up on a property to prove whether or not it was historic or not, if they were challenging that. So I mean, it's going to cost more in
Yeah, down the line.
Down the
Yeah.
line.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Do we have any on Zoom?
We have one person on Zoom.
Thank you.
All right, Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi, Stephen Buxton. I'm living at 324 East MacArthur Street. We just moved into this property last year and have been a little mystified by this process. As far as I can see, the property was designated as historic as an example of a California bungalow. But the property was extensively modified long before we moved in, about 10 years ago. The building doubled in size. The front was redone. So it's similar to the previous gentleman. It's completely different from whatever it looked like when it was judged to be a historic building. And I unfortunately missed the first hearing on this, and since then I've been trying to figure out how to get my voice heard. I guess this is the place to do it, but I'm not keen on having the house on a historic buildings list. It doesn't seem like I get a vote, but at least I can put my hand up now and say that I object to that.
Thank you. Do we have any?
Could we get a clarification on the address, please?
324 East MacArthur.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Would Stacy or Christina like to address?
I'll let Stacy address the 324 East MacArthur, and I'll just note that it's up to the discretion of the commission this evening to decide which properties to move forward and which not. I think any of the properties that we add is going to be a step forward. We have, done our due diligence and our research and come up with the list of 14 that we think are eligible and good candidates, but it's the commission's decision about which ones make that final list.
Thank you.
I'll just weigh in that similar to the previous property, this, while it has been modified, it appears that the appearance of the property from public rights of way, which is really where, when you're looking at local eligibility for listing, rather than as a higher level of listing, it does appear that the property hasn't significantly changed in appearance to the extent that it would lose the eligibility that was found by the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation in 1998. So again, like I said, with the previous property, it could be reevaluated through a historic resource evaluation. But again, because this property was found eligible for local listing, it may not, through the process of review, depending on what the findings are on record with the city, it may not trigger further review. Eligibility for local listing does not tend to confer the status of historical resource for the purposes of the California Environmental Quality Act. Eligibility for the California Register or National Register do. And so, if a project was proposed at the property, the city would have to, have a look and see what its eligibility level was before making a determination of whether a project required review for consideration as a historic resource. At present, like I said, the appearance of the house has not changed significantly since recording in 1998 for the purposes of what the Sonoma League found. And so without doing an updated evaluation, we can't say that anything has significantly changed. And so again, it is in the purview of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Stacy.
I have a question. So, this is for you, Christina. So if a property was designated historic 10 years ago, and between then and now, that property underwent some type of project, remodel, whatever, would that would have come across this committee, would it? Or it would have come, yes, it would have come across this committee, would it not?
It depends on the scope.
Okay, right.
I pulled up the street elevation, so this is 324 East
Yeah,
MacArthur.
let's see that.
Oh, sorry.
You see where my question's going? I'm wondering if people would not have, even if the property looks different, they would have had to comply with the requirements.
Yeah, I mean, any project that triggered design review, and if that was historic, and it's in the historic overlay, there we go. It likely would have triggered design review.
Oh, I know
I
it.
didn't pull up the permits. We did look at. I
Right.
know Stacy's team looked at
Yeah.
the alteration dates and building permits and things like that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You want me to pull up any other ones while we're here?
Maybe just those that have stepped
Sure.
forward and
And I didn't catch the Sonoma Highway.
19360.
Oops. What is going on? One nine. There we go.
360.
I don't know that this is the right one. Is this the right property? Oops. Stacy, can you see the Google Street View?
I can't see the share.
Oh.
Yeah, so that little Eve, I think is what, I think back in 1998, they decided that was historical bungalow. I just, I don't know, it's completely different now. And I'm just curious, did like Paige and Turnbull go visit this home and like say, yes, we're all in here? I mean, did anyone in this room go look at it? It's just.
I'll let Patricia pop up. So this street view is dated September 2022.
The review, but the pictures I've seen online and from some committee are old. They're from 1998. So you're pulling stuff online, right? This isn't out of your.
Could we please have you step up to the podium?
Yeah, so this street view is from
Thank you.
September 2022, and Stacy can elaborate a little bit more, but Page and Turnbull, based on the historic resource evaluations that we had, did the original research, and then
But just define research. Is it, we looked up an old house and designated it?
so we went based on the historic resources, the official historic resource evaluations that were in the possession of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, the Sonoma Valley Historical Society, and then this Sonoma Valley Historical Society, Patricia Cullinan, who just came up, she did site visits for each of them to confirm.
And are there pictures from those site visits?
I don't have the pictures.
Does she have them? No? Oh, sorry, you're here. Oh, okay. You can come up here with me if you want to.
I think the question is what triggers the identification of like your property? Why did your property pop up? I think that's what you're asking.
I believe it starts by how old the house is, right? And if you can find something in it that is historical, but this is a mixed-use lot. It was much bigger. Part of it was sold to the city, and I know you don't really care about that, but to us, this is just it's an opportunity. It's a mixed-use situation that is not easy to come by now. We're super excited to like do something cool here, and I worry that we're going to be limited if we're in a registry and we're fighting more. And listen, I live in a historic neighborhood. My home is historical. I'm all for it. I'm not opposed to any of this. I just find this a worrisome, and I just wondered what the due diligence was on it. So, thank you.
So, but I think what Stacy said is it's already listed. So
I know.
whether you get listed tonight, if you come to the city with a proposal, you're going to have the same process.
I understand that, but I'm not sure how that really works. So I'd rather be
Yeah, that's
one
fair.
step removed from not being on a list so that I don't have to be taken off of it at some point. So I don't know. Thanks.
Do you have any other questions for me? No.
Yeah, I do. So, just in fairness to all present, we originally were presented a pretty lengthy conversation by the previous planning director. We went into this about the process. And as I understand, there was a number of properties identified within the city and actually outside of the normal parameters that we look at. And they were selected for a variety of different reasons. Can you kind of give an overview of what might make one house more unique and more eligible than another? Or what are some of the parameters that you look for? What are some of your objectives? Just
Well, it's the
clarity.
standards that are set by the National Park Service, the Secretary of Interior. So everything falls under that. It's not personal. You evaluate on a criteria, a list, and so some of the properties that were on the original list that Christina gave me had really changed dramatically, you know, and some of them hadn't. The building was still the same, and that's if that's why it was listed. And most of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation properties were residential that were listed because of their building character.
Great,
And
thank
if
you.
I could just chime in, our goal tonight is not to make anybody uncomfortable. We can come back and do this again. You know, this is one part of what we've been trying to work on, which is highlighting our historic heritage in the community. This is one piece. We're going to keep toward the end of the night. I'll be presenting some of our recommendations for streamlining the design review process and enhancing historic preservation through our development code. So we have a lot of you know, irons in the fire to try to preserve and celebrate our history. This is just one part.
And Christine, on that note, though, you're saying that there is potential some advantage to a homeowner if they did it tonight, because if they go further on to do it at a later date, they'd have to pull their own historic review.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
there's
all
other
of
costs associated. I'm just trying to justify the means tonight or what the benefits are so you can make a
I don't see any downsides. These are all already historic, so any project that comes forward in the future is going to have to be evaluated. If in 10 years the property is dilapidated and no longer historic and a project comes in, we would need to evaluate it based on the new information at the time. So I really don't see a downside to being on the list. The advantages, as Patricia mentioned, are being able to use the historic building code. If we go further down the route of bringing the Mills Act, there are tax benefits, there are code benefits, and more flexibility for projects in the future. Like I mentioned, we haven't done this since 2006, so this is not something we do every day.
And just to confirm, all the properties that are currently on this recognized list have already been designated as historic properties. And so whether they are or are not on this list tonight, were they to come up with a project to do something with their property, they would be subject to the same types of requirements that exist now for the property.
Yeah.
It's not adding any additional.
That is my understanding. I'll let Stacy chime in, but my understanding is all the properties are eligible for listing, meaning that we have the documentation to support that listing, but whether or not they're officially listed or not, the process that the city would go through would be the same. And if you'll recall, the original list that we had was much
Yes,
larger,
much.
and so what we have weeded off are anything
Yes.
that didn't have that documentation to support that designation. So we have a list of, I think, maybe 15 properties that need more evaluation, and so we've left those off for tonight.
Right. And one more question.
Just one.
Were there any additional property owners of the 14 who objected or were uncomfortable or not sure?
No, tonight I had a meeting with the property owners from 700 Curtin Lane, and I spoke, I believe, before the last hearing with the property owners on Sonoma Highway, but I haven't had any other concerns brought to me.
Okay. Okay, so thank you.
Hearing some of this, maybe I could encourage the commission to do a continuation. I know, been in front of commissions and design reviews a lot. I know it's not your favorite thing to do, but since there are at least a few property owners that would like to further understand it, maybe a continuation of 60 days where we can set up a time to have more dialogue with Christina and get more comfortable with it. I think I agree here is once you're on that list, you're not being removed. And I think we understand that if we come in for a project and an application, you're going to go through that process regardless. We also understand that there's probably some benefits that we can tap into. But as far as the emotional side, most of these homeowners are decades on the property. And now to see this, I think it's just a level of comfort. So I might recommend that if the commission feels comfortable, moving forward with a continuation. I just heard that there's 15 more going through additional review. So maybe that means within a year, you're hopeful to bring those to the commission, and those that have asked to be removed, maybe be added to that list. I think at this point, it's just getting more comfortable and understanding the emotional side of the family members. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I just want to confirm, you're already on a list. Your properties are already designated as historic resources.
Stacy, can you comment on that and elaborate a little?
It's not like you're removing, the request to remove is from this local recognition of this group of properties as contributing resources.
And properties do come off. So when we did the Broadway update, we had properties that were removed during that process. And just to clarify, so we've been working on this process for about 6 months. We have many initiatives that we are moving forward. So I do not anticipate that we'll be doing any additional work on those 15 properties for the foreseeable future. So this will be it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add, Laura Simpson, the interim planning director for the city of Sonoma, and nice to meet you. This is my first design review and historic preservation commission meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that this process did start 6 months ago. There were many opportunities for property owners to reach out to staff and ask to be removed prior to this meeting, prior to this moment. So I do want you to please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the public we have here tonight? Seeing none, are there any others on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
And do we have any written comments?
Everything would have been uploaded to the document center before the meeting.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Let's start with Commissioner Cormany.
Well, I'm happy in design review historic preservation to finally be talking about historic preservation, because we do a lot of design review. We haven't done as much historic. So there's a part of this process that's new to us as well, and some of us, myself, have years of being here. That said, I think it's time we make some decisions about how we want our town to look in the future, and part of that is preserving what we have from the past. I think there's been a fair amount of effort to identify properties that are legitimately historical, and it seems like due diligence has been made on most behalf, and people have been part of it. That said, I'm not one for wanting to put people in a position of having to do something they're not comfortable with. So if I was to make any suggestions or recommendations about this evening, my personal opinion would be put forth the ones that we've agreed to. If there's 3 that I'm aware of that have some consternation, let's push those aside and give them another round. That would be my preferred solution.
Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Mark. I agree with what Commissioner Cormany said, but I also agree with the fact that there has been a lot of time and opportunity for these homeowners to get more information to help get comfortable with this. And I don't want to be in a position of making somebody feel uncomfortable myself, but I would feel that if they're already on the list, it's not going to change one way or another when you go to do a project. Maybe suggest that if you feel that strongly that your house isn't worthy of that, to pay for an HRE to try to prove that it isn't. What I do know is we have a lot of really significant resources that make this place special, and it's our job to help save those places. We've seen a lot of places, lost because of neglect, and I'm not saying that's the case with any of these properties, but it's something that I think we all really don't like seeing. So for me, since we're already on the list, and the only thing that's going to change is that it's acknowledged, I would be in favor of approving this resolution.
Thank you. Commissioner Let's have Michaela.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I also appreciate the work that's been done. I know Paige and Turnbull, along with support from staff and local people, have done a mountain of work on this project with all good intentions. And I would love to press the resolution forward. I also do not feel that we should require people who don't want their properties on this acknowledgement list to be on it. And so I'm taking your assurance that we haven't heard from others than these three parties this evening. And if that's the case, I would also be, I would lean towards putting a resolution forward minus the three properties that have been brought up tonight. And the only thing I would say is I would feel bad if the three properties that we're talking about tonight wound up having to spend money to get back on or off or whatever. But I think probably what would happen is these three properties would be grouped with the other 15 for later consideration. Or yeah. That was a lot of words, but my point is, I would like to approve this resolution minus 700 Curtin and 19360 Highway, Seminole Highway, and 324 East MacArthur.
And if I could just clarify, so this city at this time has no plans to evaluate those 15 other resources. We do not have the budget. That is not in our work plan
Okay.
at this time.
So it will be some time before the next round comes up for acknowledgement.
I'm sorry.
So it'll be some time before the next round comes up for acknowledgement.
Correct. And
Okay.
if through the chair, I believe Stacy has her hand raised and has a comment to add.
Thank you. Stacy?
Hi, I just wanted to clarify something a little bit with respect to, there are some subtle differences in existing status between the three properties that we're talking about potentially removing from this list. Two of them, the one on East MacArthur and the one on Sonoma Highway, have only been found so far to be eligible for listing at the local level. And so it would be up to the city's discretion to find those to require additional historic evaluation or project review were a potential project proposed at one of those sites. 700 Curtin Lane has been previously found eligible for the National Register, which is a higher level of designation, and a finding of eligibility for the National Register does qualify it as a historical resource under CEQA in a way that the other two properties are not. And so that one would likely have, while there is a lot more flexibility with the other two properties in the city's decisions regarding how to approach proposed projects at those locations, because I understand they're fairly modest. They're great representatives of Sonoma's historical residential styles, but the city can have a little more flexibility with working with property owners in that one. The one at 700 Curtin, because it had previously been found and it is listed on the Office of Historic Preservation's state level directory as having been previously found eligible for the National Register, would have to likely go through a more onerous process of evaluation and reevaluation to potentially update that finding were a project proposed at that property. If the desire was to move forward with a project that might not be compliant with the Secretary of the Interior standards. I wanted to clarify that a bit, because they're not quite all at the same level. There's a variety of different levels of significance in this group of 14 properties.
Thank you, Stacy. Alternate Jerome?
Yes, thank you. Being the owner of a property that is recognized as historical bears some cultural value for me. Having said that, I understand the level of effort that all parties have gone through to come up with a list for this resolution. But on the other hand, like many other commissioners, I don't feel comfortable forcing those people who are not feeling comfortable with moving forward being part of this list. And I think what I heard, the keywords, family value, emotional connection, and I think those have some very high value for me, and therefore I would also recommend moving forward with this resolution with the exception of those 3 properties.
Thank you. Well, this is also slightly conflicting for me. I did take the time to go visit and drive by these sites. So when you say that these properties have been in your family for years and there's such a close connection, you're all longtime Sonoma residents. I mean, this is just kind of how the history of Sonoma is. We have the Vallejos and the Cuneos and the Sebastianis. We have these great families that are just here for decades and have these deep, deep roots. And that's something to be so proud of and very unique to this town specifically, I think. There are the practicality matters at hand, but I believe that it would be quite a benefit to own a historical site for the reasons we elaborated on. Also, quite an honor and something to include with your own family history, that you're on this historical site and all of a sudden your family has a name on this historical site. You're going to be the family that we're going to be talking about many years to come. It's so-and-so's family at 700 Curtin Lane, and we need to preserve everything that they have done with the property in the future, and that's kind of the whole point, I believe. I believe that there are, thank you, Stacy, for clarifying that, because I did see the differences in maybe the caliber in some of these sites, and where some of them you just drive past and don't really remark them as much. Maybe other homes are quite similar in the same area. Maybe it's a smaller home, with other uses attached that kind of all blend together somehow. So I would be willing to prolong the 19360 Sonoma Highway and the West Nap and the 324 East MacArthur homes. But I am not so quick to let go of the 700 Curtin Lane. When you drive down that street, it is just like, wow, magic. It's just magical when you see that. And it's just so special. It's different than anything else on that side of town. It's just simply gorgeous and quite breathtaking, and you just get transported to another place in almost a different time when you kind of peer through those gates, and you're just wondering what else is hiding back there. And I mean, I just, your family's had it for decades, but things can change drastically, and I just I couldn't risk losing that property off of the registry. It's just so special to me, just as a resident of the town, seeing it and appreciating it, and I think it's just such a jewel for the town. So I would like to move forward with the motion excluding the 324 East MacArthur, 19360 Sonoma Highway, and I would like to put through the 700 Curtin Lane, and hoping the family members would come to a perspective of just accepting the honor of having that property just engraved into the fabric of our town for future generations to appreciate. So would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve, or do we have any other comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
So 700 Curtin Lane will not come off the National Registry as a result of anything that happens tonight. What we're doing tonight is a local recognition of certain properties. It doesn't change their current status if they are designated resource, just FYI.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll try it.
Okay.
I move that we approve the resolution for the updated registry inventory, local inventory of historic properties in Sonoma, excluding 700 Curtin Lane, 19360 Sonoma Highway, and 324 East MacArthur. Is that sufficient?
I second that.
All right, let's have a roll call vote, please.
All right, Commissioner Cormany,
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome,
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson.
I'm going to vote no because I agree with Chair Marr, at least with 700 Curtin.
Okay, and Chair Marr.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
And so the outcome of this vote is yes. It's been approved. We'll be moving on to our next item now. And this is item 4.2. Discussion and possible action to approve the design review application of Bart and Melissa Vio to construct a 282 square foot front porch addition at 623 2nd Street East, including finding the project categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines. And may we have a staff report, please?
Absolutely. All right, here we have the project location on 2nd Street East, just off the Sonoma Plaza. The property is about 9,000 square feet with 60 feet of frontage on 2nd Street East. The existing residence is 2,567 square feet. It has both an attached carport and a detached garage at the rear of the property. All of the surrounding development is single-family residential and zoned low-density residential. The applicable planning standards are for the Central East planning area, and it is located in the Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing a pretty modest project, including the construction of a 282 square foot addition for a new covered porch at the front of the property. The residence would be painted charcoal slate. The trim would be storm, and witching hour would be used as an accent color. The applicant submitted a historic resource evaluation determining that the property is not a historic resource under the California Environmental Quality Act. Here's the existing front elevations and the existing site plan. And we have the proposed and the proposed elevations. We have the design review findings of approval. And staff's recommendation is that the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission approve the design review application subject to findings and conditions of approval.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Oh, do we have, excuse me. First, do we have any questions for staff? Okay, then come on up. Thanks. Please state your name.
George Bevan, good evening, with Bevan Associates, 540 Peru Road, Sonoma. I'm just here on behalf of Melissa and Bart Veo. Melissa is born and raised here, and they know what they purchased. They recently purchased this home, I don't know, a year ago from the Duncan family, and that's a decades-long story that, you know, they had it in the family, so they're was careful in handling this project, and studying it carefully. Just a couple comments for context. So that, Christina, do you mind pulling up the elevations? So we're really excited about this. The existing house, it's asymmetrical, obviously. The left large window, we believe that it was formerly a porch. So there's some stuff going on there. The existing is on the right. Actually, just go back the right there. That's fine. So on the upper right is the existing front elevation. So large window. It's I think it's 12 feet, something like that. There's a window, and then the entry is actually to the side. So you actually go up the porch and enter from the side of the porch, really. So a lot of ideas were exchanged between myself and the client, and a lot of drastic ones, were exchanged, things like that. And so I felt it was appropriate to the house that we keep working again left to right, that the existing width of the opening, albeit it might have been a porch or something like that, that width did not change at all. We just dropped the sill, and now it's a door, system. A couple French doors would be really nice. As we all know, most of the homes on 2nd Street really address the street. That's what's great about it. They mostly all have porches. And so, they would like to do what you think, like swing open the French doors and hang out on the porch. So have that address the street and at a pedestrian level. Keep the window, keep the side entry of the porch, still entering from the side, but so we're in other words just creating a porch and highlighting the entry, because the entry is not called out. And then one thing that I found interesting too is it's a very large roof in person. So the rake of the roof, just standing from a pedestrian scale, just leaves you and goes all the way up to, 25 feet, something like that. So you're seeing a lot of composition shingles. And so, in my humble opinion, my approach to adding the covered porch is take it up the rake, break it, and create a simple shed. So it's actually addressing the scale of the roof in a subtle manner. Anyway, that's all I have to say. And the materials and the colors, we're working with the client, we're working with staff. It's an updated look. We know that. There's a lot of different colors and takes around this neighborhood. And so I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple. So just for confirmation, this is also, because my question was about the windows converting to doors, but you talked about that as part of that, right? You're going to change the current windows are going to become doors, right?
Yeah.
And then on a 312 pitch, can you do comp shingles?
Go back to the roof plan. Can you zoom in, Christina? That main. Sorry, maybe I have a print. I can pull it up on my laptop. I have, maybe it's a typo. That's no way a 3 and 12.
Okay, because that could have been me
Existing.
just hurrying through it too.
So maybe the shed.
No, I was
roof-
looking at the shed roof, the addition of the porch.
Yeah, I think its minimum is 3 and 12 with composition shingle. A trick around that is we put TPO underneath, and then do essentially a double roof.
Okay, thank
to
you.
get around that. Yeah, and yeah.
Any other questions from
It's
the commission?
it's probably 3 and 12, that shed roof. So yeah, is the existing, and then the
No, it was
proposed
related
shed.
to the addition.
Yeah.
But that was also several hours ago when I looked at it, so
Yeah.
could have been different.
Uh-huh.
You can't see apparently, but it does say 3 and 12.
No, but it seems like you're aware of that and take precautions with TPO. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then my other comment was, I was surprised that you didn't change the entrance. I mean, the left entrance in the door is kind of interesting. I have mixed opinions. I'm sure there was conversations about that, right?
Yeah, I got to brush up on my feng shui, but it's the interior layout is when you enter from the side, there's sort of like a vestibule moment where if you actually enter right into it, you kind of like fall into the living room. So I see where you're headed with that, because I can do the same thing with the right window. Just drop it as a front door. It's a Dutch door. It's like this cute little story, things like that, and probably have the same narrative as I'm sort of suggesting on the left window. But the interior layout kind of drove the just, hey, let's keep it. And it's been like that historically. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Are there any comments? Any public comments?
No one on Zoom has their hand raised.
And no written. Thank you. Now we'll close the meeting to the public and we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Thank you. Let's start with Commissioner Jerome.
I find an interesting improvement to the facility with a very straightforward approach, and I'm very comfortable and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph.
Yeah, I really like it too. That's my old neighborhood, and I'm very familiar with that house. And it's very, like you said, it's very flat on the front, and then that soaring, lots of roof. So I really like your solution of breaking up that view, and also I like that you are updating the look but keeping the feel. So I like it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Mar. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward, and I do like the new direction that you're going. And I just, as a side comment, I must say that this item and the next one has had some of the most fun color names that I've seen in all my time on this commission. So looking forward to seeing them done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Cormany.
No, I agree, and I love some of the craftsman details. I think it's a big improvement over what's there. So, I mean, you're really helping address some of the shortcomings of the house and not getting out of hand, and that's appreciated.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and there are some tricky elements that you had to work out there, and I think you did it very nicely, and it's going to come together very well, and I just think it's so clever with the porch breaking up the roof, and it's going to be even more clearly craftsman after that, so that's going to be great. And the door on the side doesn't bother me. It's, you know, like you said, of practicality matters, whatever's going on in the inside, and then also they can get into the front door through their carport pretty easily. It'll be very practical. So, so with all of that being said, would a commissioner like to make a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this agenda item as submitted.
Second.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Yep. Commissioner Cormany?
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome?
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph?
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Aye.
And Chair Mar?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item, 4.3. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the design review and assign variance and permit for exterior modifications to an existing building and modifications to an existing monument sign located at 190 West Napa Street, including an action to approve a categorical exemption pursuant to Section 15301 of the State CEQA Guidelines. Do we have a staff report, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this project is pretty straightforward. Another George Bevan special. Got you in and out tonight. The project site is about 6,000 square feet. This is an existing commercial building on the north side of West Napa between 2nd Street West and 1st Street West. The existing building is 2 stories, 3,621 square feet. There's 9 on-site parking spaces in the back, and all the surrounding uses and zoning are commercial. My favorite word tonight is stuccoing. I don't know if that's a real word, but the proposal includes re-stuccoing the building to a smooth texture, painting the building a light white, cream color, new lighting, there's some steel elements, and a new monument sign. The proposed paint for the building is Chit Chat, and the eastern elevation would be painted buffalo. Then we have matte stainless steel elements. The existing fascia would be repainted dark chocolate. We have the decorative chimney, new light fixtures, new French door, and my favorite part is the mural that's going to be added on the west side of the building and wraps around. The monument sign is going to use the existing base, the existing foundation, and it would be a new sign. The reason for the variance this evening is that the building is actually right on the property line, and the existing sign is in the Caltrans right-of-way. And so there really isn't anywhere on the property to put a sign in front. It's replacing an existing sign in the same size, and staff is comfortable recommending the variance this evening. Here's the site plan. You can see the property line on that left-hand side. And so Caltrans would need to approve an encroachment permit. This is similar to what's been done all up and down West Napa. Here's the existing. And the proposed. This is the north elevation. Sorry, north is the bottom right. East is top left. Here's the new monument sign. There we go. So this evening, the Design Review Commission has we have the sign permit findings of approval, we have the sign variance, and the Design Review findings of approval. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you.
Available for questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. This is the first time I've ever seen anything related to a mural. Does the city have any oversight or comment on that situation? What is regulation?
We're just treating it as part of the design review. It's a private building and before the commission tonight for consideration, and I'm sure Mr. Bevan's going to elaborate a little bit on that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I think it's probably more for the applicant, so I'll hold off.
All right. Is the applicant available? State your name one more time for me,
Thank
please.
you. George Bevan,
Thanks.
Bevan Associates, 540, where do I live? Peru Road.
Like,
Thanks to staff for working with us on this one. I bought this in July from Michael Ross. I've always loved the building. And it's, it was really originally constructed in the originally constructed in 85, 86, something like that. And it's hospice by the bay, and just love the shape and things like that. Our office is going to be in there, and we're going to have a few tenants in there. I think it's just an easy update, re-stucco, add some, some steel, exaggerate the arches, just, do a nice job on it. Really nice lighting. We upgraded some of the finishes inside and things like that. But, and then the sign, multi-tenant sign, similar to our other building down the street. The tenants, if they move, you can switch out the plaques and things like that. So there's some versatility there. And the entire front, for some reason, is a Caltrans right away. So you have an ADA ramp actually in that right away as well. So for the front of the building. And then let's see, that covers the sign. And then the mural, bear with me. I woke up with this vision, and I had the same question how do we deal with art? And I'd really like to see more public art, like in the city. I have a massive wall facing 7-Eleven with, it's lit all the time and it has a lot of security cameras all over it. So I'm like, well, let's do a big mural on the side. So, so I'm going to just say that, I have 3 kids. And so this is, like a mural, like ode to sort of the children of Sonoma, through COVID and what they've gone through the last few years. It's so I sort of woke up with this thing where it's like a silhouette of a mother blowing flower petals across the entire west elevation, and then it wraps around the front of the building, and then maybe we have a sort of a public call to have the kids, I'm making this up as I go along, so bear with me, have a call to the children, so to speak, basically to, put their name on the petals or something like that. Have it like this is like a major art component for the city. It's, in my opinion, this building is one of the sort of the gateway buildings, as you arrive into Sonoma on 12 and you're approaching the plaza. So blowing something towards the plaza and things like that. I wrote a background on sort of this approach. I haven't shared it with anybody, but I wrote it a few weeks ago. I can read it, but anyway, it's just supporting, just the experience we've all been through, especially our kids, where our kids are going, and to actually give them something like a gesture or a mark locally that they can come back to and, feel connected towards town, something like that. So it's a private building. It's a private art installation, basically. That's all I can say about that. But yeah, I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have that question?
Yeah. How is the permit process with Caltrans going, since I think that is kind of a component of being able to get all this done?
I don't know how it's treated. I don't know. I'm not sure.
So you're still in that process?
Yeah, I'm still. We have to get the building restuccoed, stuff like that. So I'm not, this is completely voluntary. So I would love just to get the building restuccoed. And then I'm assuming worst case, it's treated like even a billboard would be, as far as evaluation of what's appropriate and what's not. If I can put a massive billboard on there and have a restaurant advertising or something like that,
right.
I would expect the same scrutiny as the public art component.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I'll work with staff. I'll ask you guys. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
So.
I think I can elaborate a little bit. So there's a condition of approval that would require the encroachment permit from Caltrans before the building permit's issued. But the work that doesn't need a building permit can go ahead, and anything that's on the private property can go ahead after this approval.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Do we have a full image of your mural?
Of the what?
The full image. I see just a piece of that image.
Of the mural, please.
Yeah, we don't have,
There's more.
it's in black
Oh,
and
okay.
white on the west elevation, the full color. And let me pull up the plans, because then I can zoom in a little bit.
I printed, so I'm embarrassed I left him out. So I commissioned Charlie Wilhelm. I've always admired his artwork. It's crazy. He takes figures, and in shadowing, he actually uses letters to actually kind of accent faces and shadowing and things like that. So Charlie is the same age as my daughter. He's starting freshman year in high school. So I approached Charlie and I said, "Hey, what do you think about like having the whole side of the building to do something? And here's an idea." And so him and I have been collaborating over the last maybe 2 months. And he texted me the latest picture last night. So I just printed it in color, but I unfortunately don't have a larger picture of it, but it's still in the works. it's like a whole silhouette, and
I hate this thing.
like a big textural floral kind of blowing off. And my intention is, we sort of initially started here, but we may move it back and have it, you know, more just blow across the whole building. So.
Is there enough room on that side for him to do this work with all that traffic coming in and out of 7-Eleven?
There's a 5-foot planter, actually, and we have to actually put up scaffolding for the stucco, so.
Okay.
Can you see it better now on the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Oh, well, let's open it to the, are we on the public? Yes.
I think we need to open it to the public still.
Thank you. I'm getting a little tired. Are there any public comments?
There is no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Let's start with Commissioner Cormany, please.
I love the artwork. I think it's a great idea. That's my first response. I think the colors and everything, I think George has been around, he's a fixture in town, we know the kind of work he does, and that brings confidence that this project will fit in alignment with, particularly because it's your own. So I'm in favor of it. I think what you've chosen and the color and what you're trying to achieve is great. And I actually really, really applaud you on the public artwork. I think it's super cool.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Mar. The building itself is a drastic change. With the arches and the color, it just totally looks like a whole new building. I will say I'm a little gun shy on the art. I'm not opposed to it, but ever since we had an issue with one door in this town and the color, I get a little gun shy. But I'm okay after your explanation, and I think it'll be fine.
Commissioner Randolph.
Yeah, I am really excited about this building. I feel like it's been waiting for some help, and you're right, it's really stands out when you're going on 12, either way, really. So I love what you're doing to it. You're just giving it total TLC and changing it in, really bringing its characteristics forward, and then just layer on the incredible art idea. That's pretty fantastic. So I'm sure it could create some controversy because that's what art does. But bravo, hats off to you. Can't wait to see that change.
And Commissioner Jerome.
Yes. First of all, I applaud your enthusiasm for the public art, and very grateful that your fatherly feeling came in to elaborate on what the public's interest might be. And I like also the combination of colors, new colors on the building, and the way that the volume of the building is much more visible with this color variation than the one before. I applaud you though for that.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners. It's just incredible that you had this vision for that property, because it's always one that I kind of just turn away. I guess it's the color. But so that was actually surprising to me that you said that, wow, you could see the potential in the vision, and that's going to be my new office. And wow, it looks great. I can't wait to see it completed. All of your choices seem perfect on the exterior. The mural is just so thoughtful, and just I think it's going to be very well accepted. Anything that takes the focus off of 7-Eleven is going to be appreciated by myself and hopefully others. So in that context, I think it's the perfect place for it. So I am all for the mural. Bring on the controversy. We can probably handle that too. And you're using local kids and local artists. Everything is just great. So let's have a motion to approve, please.
I move that we approve the application as submitted.
I second.
I'll have a vote, please.
Yes. Commissioner Cormany,
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome,
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Aye.
and Chair Marr.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to 4.4, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the sign permit of Sign Designs Incorporated to reface the existing monument sign at 540 West Napa Street, including action to approve a categorical exemption pursuant to section 15311 of the state CEQA guidelines. May we have a staff report?
Yes, and I will be incredibly brief because this is a pretty simple project. So the applicant is proposing to change the current manual numbering to LEDs. We all know where Chevron is. It's commercial next to Sonoma Market. So they're not proposing to change the frame or the size. We just have the change to make it an illuminated sign. I know. I think that was maybe a little disingenuous to put $1, but so this is the east and west existing, and this is the proposed over on the right. We have the sign permit findings of approval. And staff's recommendation is to approve the sign permit, including action to approve a categorical exemption.
Are there any questions for staff?
I have a question. It's a very simple approach. Why does this application comes to this commission?
Excellent question. I think this is an issue that we have dealt with many times over the years, and the intention is to rewrite our sign ordinance so that applications like this would not be before the commission in the future. It is just, the sign code is actually quite a beast, and it's going to take some time and energy to do that. Our first step is going to be addressed tonight at the study session, so we're starting our baby steps towards streamlining the design review process so that the commission does focus more on historic preservation and less on gas station signs.
Any other questions? Is the applicant available?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Jerome,
I'm all for it.
could you say it in your mic, please? Thanks.
I'm all for it.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph?
Yes, same here. I think this is part of an like national branding situation. So yeah.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yeah, I have no issues whatsoever. I approve.
Chair Cormany?
Yeah, there's a lot I could say, but I'm not gonna say anything. No, it's fine. It looks great to me.
And likewise, may I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve as submitted.
I second.
Vote, please.
Commissioner Cormany,
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome,
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
and Chair Marr.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Item 4.5, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the sign permit application of Steve Peterson at 591 Broadway, including an action to approve a categorical exemption pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15311. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, I will try to be similarly quick. This is Pete's Coffee and Tea currently, and they're changing their branding to be Pete's Coffee. So that's the reason for the rebranding. The existing signs are all proposed to be replaced. The major change is that there is a switch from external illumination on that primary awning sign to interior illuminated signs. Our code is really doesn't encourage interior illumination, and the applicant is proposing that the sign is twice as big as the current one. So staff is recommending a condition of approval of approving the interior illumination switch, but not approving the expansion of the sign. So what's included in the request in the application is to amend the front entrance sign, awning sign, reface the monument sign. There's a wall sign in the parking lot. There are also parking lot signs that indicate where customers can park. And they also requested some gold decals on those front doors. And there was a program that was approved several years ago. The proposal is largely in keeping with it. As I mentioned, the proposal for the awning sign would double the size. It's currently 11 square feet, and the proposal is for the sign to be 21 square feet. And the interior illumination would be 300. And I don't know, I'm bad with the LEDs, but I believe that's a pretty bright white LED, where the existing sign is exteriorly illuminated. The monument sign, there's no change to the lighting, no change to the sign. It's just the sign face is going to be swapped out. So we have similar on the wall sign, just swapping out the faces. There's a slight issue with the parking lot signs as far as the code goes. So there are currently 5 signs, and we limit the number of signs and the size. So there is a condition of approval for those parking lot signs that only under the code, only 4 would be allowed, and they need to be a little bit smaller than is proposed. And then the gold lettering on that front window exceeds the maximum number of signs allowed. So the applicant could request a variance. They have not done that at this time and are trying to work with the code. So the conditions of approval that staff's recommending is that the existing awning sign remain the same size that it is now, but authorizing the switch to the interior illumination and limiting the parking lot signs to what's allowed by code, and excluding the front door decals because they already hit that maximum number of signs. We have the sign findings as well as the additional findings for the historic overlay district. And staff recommends approval with conditions of approval, including action to approve the CEQA exemption.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff?
No, but I can provide some feedback. So you're questioning whether 3,000 degrees Kelvin is warm or cold?
I believe it's pretty cold, but I don't
No.
know. No, it's not. It's warm?
No. So typical mean day, middle of the day is 5,000 degrees Kelvin. So
Okay.
that's blue.
Okay.
And as you go lower, it gets warmer, and as you
Okay.
go higher, it gets colder.
Thank you.
So incandescent lights, gold screw-in light bulbs are about 2,800 degrees Kelvin.
Okay.
So this is a warm white LED.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's the photographer me coming out.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Are there other businesses in that area with interior illumination presently? On Broadway?
That's a good question. I believe the museum sign that was recently approved has some interior illumination for the logo. It's we approved one for the boutique hotel, but that's on West Napa. There's not a lot of interior illuminated signs. Most of them are older signs with external illumination. And I know that was, the focus of the code is really to prevent that. So I struggled with whether or not to require the exterior illumination to remain or to support the change. But I'm not a lighting expert, so.
Do you think this is being driven by corporate or is it local? I mean, what's the
I
doubling
think
of
it's
the
the corporate
size?
branding.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
what it
guessing
sounds
it's
like to
more
me.
energy efficient than the exterior illumination.
Maybe.
They don't have to
I
illuminate
don't
it
know.
at all. Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant available?
No.
All right. Are there any public comments?
No, there are no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public, bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Cormany?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in on this one. I think staff's proposal is in alignment with how I believe. I don't see the need to have the sign be twice as big. Like, it seems like it's adequate size to me already. We kind of know it's there. Internal illumination, I mean, that's probably more in line with corporate requirement than actually, and I think your decision there is okay as well. And the number of signs. So my feeling is I would like to compliment the staff. I think you've done a very good job of taking a situation that's trying to get big and gloaty and out of control and kind of reined it into what might make sense. So I'm in agreement with what you did. I think you did a nice job. Thank you.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Thank you, Chair Amar. Yeah, I agree. I agree with staff and their proposal for this too. So I'm inclined to follow their direction.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, I agree. I am a little sketchy on the internal lighting, just because Pete's faces residential. You know, I know it's across the street from the Shell station. Well, that's internally lit. But yeah, that corner could all of a sudden kind of get like big commercial looking lights right there.
There is a condition of approval regarding the timing that we
Oh.
are allowing the
Oh, I see.
illumination. So our standard practice has been to only allow the illumination for 1 hour past closing.
Mhm.
So the prior sign program allowed the illumination till 10 p.m. and currently Pete's hours are 6 p.m. So the conditions of approval state that the illumination would be only allowed until 7 p.m. So overall, it would be a reduction in the hours
Okay.
that the sign is allowed to be lit.
All right. And agree. Thank you, staff, for fixing that situation.
And Commissioner Jerome.
I agree with the staff recommendation.
Thank you. I'm happy that you are working to reduce that awning size. Cannot be any bigger than what it is. I feel very against the interior illumination. I feel like if we could nip this one in the bud, sort of, and kind of set the precedent for Broadway, which is obviously the most trafficked, and that one is awfully close to the plaza as well. I don't think it's necessary at all that they have an illuminated sign for the coffee shop that closes at 6 p.m. We don't need to know where they are in the nighttime. It's okay. So I think they can use the exterior lights, or they don't have to illuminate it at all, and just make a very nice sign. And I'm fine with the gold decals on the window. I don't have any issue with that, nor the parking signs. So let's make a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this agenda item based on staff recommendations of approval and subject to findings of approval.
I second that.
Vote, please.
Commissioner Cormany,
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome,
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Aye.
and Chair Marr.
Nay.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1.
Thanks. 4.6. Woo! Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the landscape plan of Jerron Chamberlain at 800 Broadway, including action to approve a categorical exemption pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15301. Staff report, please.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a kind of a good example to set the stage for our study session later. So this is similar to Commissioner Jerome's comments about the sign permits. This is another action that we're looking to take out of the purview of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission as part of our design review streamlining. The landscape plans and WELO calculations would change to be approvable by staff, but that hasn't happened yet. So this evening we are here to approve a landscape plan at 800 Broadway. This was a project that was approved in 2000. It was a change of use to a dental office. It's located in the Broadway corridor, and the applicant has provided their master landscape plan with their planting palette, as well as the irrigation plan and their WELO calculations. And staff hasn't found any issues with what's being proposed, and is recommending that the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission recommend approval of the landscape plan subject to conditions of approval. Here's the hydro zones in case anybody wants to see.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff?
I just wanted to appreciate your comment about the streamlining process. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant available?
No.
Thank you. And are there any public comments?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll close the meeting to the public. Bring it back to commission. Commissioner Jerome.
Well, I agree with approval of the plan subject to condition of approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph.
Agree. I approve as well.
Vice Chair Johnson.
Yeah, I would approve based on the conditions of approval.
Commissioner Cormany.
It's interesting because I've been watching them work on it, and I was curious what they were going to do, whether we'd see it. So we did see it. So, but I approve of what has been presented.
Thank you. I think it's a straightforward application, and I will approve as well. Could we have a motion to approve, please?
I suggest approving the landscape plan subject to conditional approval.
Second.
Vote, please.
Commissioner Cormany,
Aye.
Commissioner Jerome,
Aye.
can you do the microphone?
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Aye.
and Chair Marr.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Great. We'll now move on to items for discussion. Any items for discussion?
Yeah, we actually have a study session next for, I think we do, or is that, do I have the wrong way? Did it not go out? That's okay, we can do it for items for discussion. I have a presentation to summarize what our plan is moving forward for streamlining the design review process. This got kicked off about a year ago with a joint session with the City Council, Planning Commission, and the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission. We've changed tracks a little bit. If you'll remember, about a year ago, the direction from City Council was to take the design review out from the DRHPC. And as we got into kind of really looking at the code issues and have worked through some of our streamlining issues, we have kind of come up with maybe a baby step in the right direction. So I think about a year ago or a couple of years ago, one of the primary concerns has been a lot of these new housing bills and the requirements to limit hearings to 5 meetings. And in the last year, we figured out some workable joint meetings. We've had a tree committee and design review commission. We've had co-design review and planning commission hearings. And so that kind of that threat of those 5 meetings isn't feeling as pressing. And also, as staff processes more permits, really seeing the importance in the design review process and having these additional hearings and the value that it does give to the Planning Commission and City Council to really vet some, especially the larger projects, in more detail. While also trying to honor a lot of these conversations that we've had about sign permits and trying to be conscious of staff's time and the commission's time and applicants' time and money every time we come to one of these commission meetings where we're writing staff reports and resolutions and conditions of approval and presenting, and it sometimes for some of these projects the level of effort exceeds what is probably warranted. So the proposal before the commission this evening, what we're have put together a draft ordinance. This also was a study session before the Planning Commission in December, so they had an opportunity to review very briefly. They didn't really discuss it, so it'll be discussed this week on Thursday in more detail by the Planning Commission. But it's a pretty it's a good step in the right direction. So we're under Title II. It is changing the authority of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission to reflect the changes. So Title II is the area of the code that lays out what the roles and responsibilities of design review is. So the changes to Chapter 1432, that is our water efficient landscape ordinance, and that is where it says that all of the landscape plans and the WELO calculations need to be approved by design review. So the changes would be changing design review to staff. And then under applications and filing, we are creating a major and minor design review process. And so a minor design review would be approvable by staff, where a major permit would still come to the commission. But we're trying to create a space where a minor addition that, is at the back of the building, that isn't really a big deal, could go straight to a building, have a more modest approval and then go straight to a building permit. And we've tried to make the code clearer about what does and does not require design review, kind of raising the floor a little bit of what even triggers a design review, so more projects can go straight to a building permit. So especially outside of the historic overlay, a 200, 300 square foot addition, things like that, really doesn't warrant, a commission hearing, let alone staff time. And so just overall really trying to do what we can to have our lens be a member of the public who can come in and read the code, and practitioners can understand what the requirements are and move forward in a more expeditious manner. One of the changes that's already gone through is we had a provision for concurrent processing. So we did have a code change. So for example, the Monday Bakery that this commission reviewed in November, it then went to the Planning Commission in December. So we did make a code change. So those projects will now just go to design review, will just go to the Planning Commission. So we've already made some steps in the right direction. And this, what we're proposing now is streamlining the design review, limiting a little bit what comes to the commission, and then there's just going to need to be some additional steps. So the sign code needs to be rewritten, but so we couldn't tackle that at this point in time. So I think I already went through all of these. In 1954, we alternatively use the term design review and site design and architectural review. So just picking one term and being consistent with our fee schedule. And one of the things that's really exciting is that we are codifying the requirements for historic resource evaluations. So right now it's a best practice and part of our CEQA process, but we're actually putting it into the code about what is required. We're also changing the dates in the code. So right now, design review is triggered if it was constructed before 1945. And what CEQA actually says is if it's over 50 years old. So 1945 was much more than 50 years old at this point in time. And one of the recommendations from Page and Turnbull was actually not to have it be 50 years, but to have it be 45 years, because some projects take a while to go through the planning process. And so if you have a property that's 49 years old when they're developing the process, and then by the end of it, it exceeds it. So it gives us a little bit of a buffer to try to catch some historic resources before it's too late. And then some clarifications for historic review and demolition permits as well. So I'm not going to go through all the code changes because I think it's like 100 pages of changes, but would just love your time and attention, particularly with the table in I think it's 1954. It's either 1952 or 1954. And I will send out a separate email to follow up, but it basically is, it's the triggers for what requires design review and what doesn't, but would love your feedback on what you feel should be reviewed by the commission. We can, raise things up. We can put the threshold down a little bit. It's definitely a conversation that we'd really like to have. And so the path forward right now is we're going to Planning Commission on Thursday with the draft. As I mentioned, we put everything out as a study session, but the study session wasn't actually held. So it is advertised as potential recommendation for the Planning Commission to forward the code changes to the Planning Commission. It very likely could get continued and have that discussion more, but like I said, would very much like extra sets of eyes on it to make sure we're not missing anything.
So ultimately, is a vote to change code by City Council? Who has the authority?
Correct. So what the process is, we go to Planning Commission for a recommendation, and Planning Commission makes a recommendation to City Council, and then we introduce the ordinance at a public hearing, and then it is adopted 2 weeks later-ish on consent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Lots of work to do with under an interim planning director too. Huh? That's a lot to take on.
Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say that many cities are doing this to make sure, as Christina mentioned, to kind of be more efficient with time and with meetings and the whole review process, and to obviously streamline it wherever possible. Obviously we're not recapturing all the time that we put into every item, but I think it's still important to have our objective standards, and we do follow those, and there are certain projects, obviously historic, that would rise to the level to be reviewed by the commission as well. So we think it's a good step in the right direction, as Christina said, to kind of streamline the whole process and make it easier given our staffing levels. And on the next item, I'll give you a little update on staffing and things.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? on this? All right, let's move to the issues and updates, please.
I'll just give a quick update. As most of you know, I think already, our associate planner, Wendy Atkins, her last day is tomorrow, and she has accepted a position with Napa County, and it's very close to her home. So it's great for her, very short commute and great opportunity. So we're sorry to see her finish up here after many years in the city of Sonoma, but we're happy for her. And just to let you know, we have worked out a person who is available through M Group Consulting, who can be a contract planner at the associate level. And we are recommending that to City Council next Monday evening on consent. And so if Council approves, we will move ahead with bringing that person on board and hopefully having her here 2 days a week so that she can work at the front counter and also do project work as well. So we're hoping not to have too long of a time frame in there where Wendy's gone and we don't have another staff person. So Christina has been very busy. So we are trying to get more help on right away. So I just wanted to let you know.
Is that intended to be a permanent solution, or is that a temporary till you find
That's
somebody?
temporary. With the interim city manager is meeting with council. I believe it's on January 31st to talk about goal setting and priority setting, and they will look at how to move ahead with recruitments for open positions such as the director position. Obviously, the city manager position is already out there, and so that's moving ahead, hopefully to be filled in April. So I think with council direction, they will look at the timing for a director and then also filling the vacant planning position. So I'll get more direction as he does. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson. Do we have comments from the commission?
I have a question that is totally silly. So the item numbers, how they go 4-1? Weren't they 6 or 7 prior to?
I feel like it changes every month, and then during COVID, it was like 8, and I don't know.
No, it just caught me off guard because I was always used to like item 7.1, item 7.2.
It caught me off guard too because I listed. Oh, you know what it is? It's because this is a special. Because the regular meeting would have been last week, and we moved it because of the housing element.
It's just incidental. It doesn't matter. Just curious. Thank you.
I think that's what it was because I listed everything as 7 and then had to change it back.
Any further comments? Mike. Mike, make it. Mike.
I think this is my last meeting. I think my term is over this month, which means now. So, that might affect others on this commission as well. So I'm not really sure exactly what happens next there.
I do know that also on January 23rd, the council will be selecting commissioners for vacant or ending positions on all the commissions. So we expect to get that list of new, for example, climate action commissioners, which is newly formed, but also vacant planning commission or any design review commission. So I'm not sure exactly who it is, but they are selecting new commissioners on 23rd.
Any other comments? All right. Well, I will adjourn this meeting of the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission at 7:55.